Hello and welcome to the President's Podcast right here on the record with the Ohio Senate. The views the news excludes. I'm John Fortney, the Director of Communication with the Senate Republican Caucus. That is the majority caucus in the Ohio Senate. Great to have back on the program Senator Theresa Gavarone, Republican from Bowling Green, Ohio, who happens to be the majority floor leader in the Ohio Senate.
So nice to have you here in my hometown, Bowling Green.
Yeah, Bowling Green. We'll talk more about that here in a few minutes as well. And, you know, it seems like we are always having to address election integrity in Ohio, especially when it made such huge national headlines recently with the open borders now being closed by the Trump administration after millions of people poured in across the border who clearly weren't checked, were illegal migrants, and many of them now are being deported. But this also speaks directly to protecting the integrity of Ohio's elections, and you have three bills right now that are pending in the Senate. Senate Bill 4 is one of your bills, and it talks about establishing an election integrity unit within the Secretary of State's office. What is the mission of it?
That's right. Well, the Secretary of State's office currently is working on investigating cases, allegations of election fraud. And so we thought it would be important to codify this election integrity unit and make sure that they have the ability to issue subpoenas, to gather evidence, to look into some of these allegations. And if there's evidence that a crime has been committed, they can refer that to the prosecutor for prosecution.
You know, sometimes it seems like maybe this is an afterthought or it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. Like, we hear the left say, well, you know, election fraud rarely happens, maybe once or twice, but there's a couple things to think about. One attempt of an illegal vote or one illegal vote can change an election. There were 2 or 3 elections around the state at the local level that were decided by, I think, less than 10 votes.
Well, I can tell you that one election right here in Wood County was dead even. The election day, they counted the results and they had the exact number of votes.
So one illegal vote would have disenfranchised the whole electorate, basically.
That's
right?
Exactly right. That's exactly right. And so it matters. Every single vote is important, and we need to make sure each one is counted properly.
Not only people who would vote illegally, but investigating other types of fraud that might deal with the election system. Would that also have something to do with issue campaigns?
Absolutely. We need to make sure we're doing everything we can to create transparency, to make sure people know what it is they're voting on and who's asking them to sign a petition.
Yeah, and you have another bill, Senate Bill 153, which does a couple things, but about petition drives. Anytime I've ever been approached by somebody wanting me to sign a petition for a constitutional amendment, whatever it is, they kind of invade your personal space a little bit.
Yes, they
because
do.
I think they're paid based on how many signatures that they can gather that are valid, legitimate signatures. But I'm not sure. I'd always say, who are you with? What are you doing? What is this? Let me read it. And usually I wouldn't even sign it because you don't exactly know what you're signing. Senate Bill 153 actually gets to making sure that you know who you are talking to.
That's exactly right. And it's interesting you bring up that point. I was actually at a parade once and standing in line kind of waiting for things to get started, and someone came by with a petition, and I was familiar with the issue, and they were totally lying about what that issue was verbally. And of course, when you call someone out on this, they stand back, but you don't know. So it's important that everyone reads what's in the petition, but it's also really important that you know who is asking you to sign it.
So what would the bill require? Them to wear a badge that they are an official petition gatherer for this issue in the state? How would that, what do you think it should look like?
Well, I think it should be disclosed. If you're being paid to circulate, if you're paying someone to circulate a petition, that should be disclosed. But under this bill, you would be required to wear a badge saying you are a paid circulator. So people know it's not my neighbor who's really interested in this issue. It's someone who's being paid to gather signatures.
And that, I've heard some pushback on that, like, well, you're making them wear a scarlet letter, that you're basically making them less able to do their jobs. Well, all we're saying is we just want to understand who you're with.
It's transparency. And what I would say is, why are you afraid for people to know the truth? It's transparency, and the public deserves to know that.
Does anything within the bill, if somebody does sign the petition, they have to sign their name normally? I think you print it and you sign it, but you also have to provide, obviously, your address as a
Right.
registered voter. Is there any double checking about when it comes to validating those signatures regarding where the address is?
Well, you need to make sure everything matches. And everything needs to be accurate. I know when I pull petitions, I need to make sure I know that everything is correct on those petitions that I'm gathering. And certainly your address needs to be correct. Everything needs to be.
So when you sign the petition, I should still be living at that address then?
Yes.
Right, when election day comes around.
That's right. Well, or, I mean, if you move between then and election day.
Right.
Yeah, where you're registered to vote when you sign that petition.
That makes sense. It doesn't seem like, some just basic checks and balances should be all that hard of a procedure
Right.
to accept for both sides of the political aisle.
That's exactly right. This crosses both sides evenly.
Senate Bill 153 also addresses citizenship and voting. How so?
Well, it's really important that citizens are voting in our elections and that people who are not citizens are not. It's something that the voters feel very strongly about here in Ohio. In fact, just a few years ago, 77% of Ohio voters voted to put in our Constitution that non-citizens are not allowed to vote in
Local
yeah,
elections.
Local elections, that's right. But that's something that Ohioans feel strongly about, and it's in the law right now. So it's important to make sure that we're, validating citizenship up front.
Yeah, and it was hard to believe that. I remember that. I think it was in 2022 when that constitutional amendment was passed. But even reading that on the ballot, I'm like, we have to actually take a vote on this? I mean, it seems like such a no-brainer, but in today's world, you have to be so specific and make sure that you are protecting the integrity of elections, because I believe it was the community of Yellow Springs was actually allowing non-citizens, people who aren't an American citizen, to vote in local elections. And when you think about the old saying of all politics is local, that's disturbing.
It's really disturbing.
It's at the grassroots level.
And I never thought we would have had to put that in our Constitution or take a vote on that, but we did. And it's important that people's voices were heard and that passed overwhelmingly.
So Senate Bill 153 would specify that you need to be a citizen of the United States to participate in an Ohio election.
That's correct. And it really is simple. The verification happens on the back end. You're through the Bureau of Motor Vehicles database and the Social Security database. So if you register to vote and you have a driver's license, that's checked on the back end. If everything is in place through the BMV, then that's all you need. So the vast majority of cases, when you go to get your driver's license or your state ID, you need to show a birth certificate. So there's your proof of citizenship in the vast majority of cases. And so this really wouldn't change things mechanically all that much for the average citizen who is going to register to vote, because you've got your driver's license, it's checked on the back end. And if there's an issue, if you're not a citizen or you're not having that documentation verifiable through those databases, then a letter is sent. And you can show, I've become a naturalized citizen, I can provide that documentation, or whatever verification is necessary.
There's still a thing called provisional voting in Ohio, too.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And there's 4 days to cure a provisional ballot after the election as well. So it's something that I think is going to be really important. There were over 100 people who were found to be non-citizens who were registered to vote in Ohio. Whether that was an innocent mistake or whether that was an intentional wrongdoing. Regardless, this would identify the issue up front and prevent that vote from being counted until citizenship could be verified.
Clearly it is happening, yet, during the big run-up to issue 1 and the defeat of that last fall, which was the political outcomes over people campaign is what I called it. It was the Citizens Not Politicians campaign is what they called it, a $40 million dark money campaign, basically. The first part of it was foreign funded, more than $6 million coming from the 1630 fund, the Hans-Georg Weiss group. Yeah. And then the big battle in springtime last year was banning foreign contributions to issue campaigns, and what a fight that was, because we already banned them from candidate campaigns, and we just wanted to apply the law to issue campaigns, and we heard the other side of the aisle say, well, it's not happening, it's not happening. Well, same thing with illegal voting. We hear, it's not happening, but just next door in Perrysburg, there was a 24-year-old man who posed as a kid that was attending high school, had a driver's license, right? He had a social security card, and he was not supposed to be in the country. That's what happens with open borders. It not only jeopardizes the security of your neighborhood, but it also jeopardizes national security right down to election security.
That's exactly right. So it's important to make sure we're doing everything right when it comes to our elections. Ohio's a really important state, and every vote counts. And we need to make sure that people have the confidence in the integrity of our elections. It's so important for citizenship involvement to have that faith that we're doing things right here in Ohio.
Well, easy to vote and hard to cheat is what current U.S. Senator, but when he was Secretary of State for 2 terms, John Husted, used to say all the time. We want to make it easy to vote. It is easy to vote. It is easy to go, fill your registration out online, make a change of address when you need to, and go participate in your local elections. But nobody would want fraud to be part of an election, to cancel out and disenfranchise their vote. What was your overall thought when that story broke about a 24-year-old going to high school and living right here in such a, in Perrysburg, a nice community?
It was shocking, absolutely shocking that a student was able to pretend he was someone else, get these documents, and actually enroll in high school without question. And, afterwards, it was found he had a number of different identifications and even illegal weapons. But what's to prevent someone from also registering to vote? Exactly. And we need to make sure that if someone does that, we're verifying up front before that vote is counted.
Right, and then you have protections on the back end. If the person does participate on Election Day or during the 28-day election period in Ohio, it's flagged, but you can still vote provisionally, and then it's double-checked on the back end, as you were saying.
That's exactly right.
One of the things that I always found sort of a head-scratcher was all the pushback and arguments about we need more drop boxes in the state of Ohio for ballots, for people just to walk up and, like a mailbox, drop their ballot right there at the Board of Elections, or drop it at a drop box here on the corner of Court and State, or whatever it is. I always thought that jeopardized your ballot, because who's to say they don't like the election system, and maybe we take an envelope and we set it on fire with an accelerant and drop it in the drop box and wipes out your vote. Right. Senate Bill 153 addresses ballot drop boxes, and how does it do that?
And it's concerning, because before COVID, we didn't have ballot drop boxes at our boards of elections, and now we have them, and it's important that we're doing everything we can. I was told of a Board of Elections drop box where they had to move it closer to the building because people were throwing trash in it.
Well, if somebody threw any kind of like a taco wrapper, right, the grease on the taco wrapper could theoretically alter the envelope or bleed through, and those ballots have to be filled out so specifically. If it's smudged, there's a good chance it would be thrown out.
Right, and then we heard of several cases out in some western states where people put incendiary devices on the drop boxes, and there were hundreds of ballots lost in those cases, and that's just unacceptable. So we need to make sure that we're protecting the ballots that are cast, and ballot drop boxes are vulnerable. So I think it's important to.
Because you can still vote by mail.
You can still vote by mail.
You can apply for an absentee ballot, fill out the form, get your ballot and the envelope it comes in. Make sure you fill it out specifically as directed and drop it in the mailbox.
And drop it in the mailbox. And you can take your ballot and walk into the Board of Elections and drop it off. It's very simple.
Hand delivered.
That's right.
Personally, I would want to hand deliver my ballot.
Right.
If I couldn't get it in the mail in time, or
Yeah.
I was fearful that, based on the pace of the U.S. mail system or whatever, because every mailbox is a ballot drop box.
That's right.
Based on Ohio's law of mail-in ballots.
That's
right?
exactly right.
We talk a lot about the pushback on election integrity and, what the other side of the aisle always has an issue with. I was very interested, however, that recently Senate Bill 63, which was sponsored by Senator Gavarone, and the potential incoming chairman of the Ohio Democratic Party, Senator Bill DeMora, who's a senator out of Columbus, Ohio, co-sponsored a bill with you that would prohibit ranked choice voting.
That's right. It's a bad idea all around. And it would, oh boy,
Yeah, what is it? I guess ranked choice voting, the way I would describe it is you pick your top whatever and your candidate, but then if nobody has a plurality or majority of the votes, then whoever wins may not be the person you voted for or really wanted. It's very confusing.
Right. So the way it works is you take the number of candidates, say there are 9 candidates, and you rank them in choice of preference, first, second, third, fourth, all the way down to 9. And you cast your ballot. And if no one gets 50% plus 1 vote, then the lowest number drops off and they retabulate the first and the second. And they keep going through until they have someone who's gotten 50% plus 1 vote. And it's really, if you think about the time and the expense, and my joint sponsor, Bill DeMora, said there was a ballot issue. Actually, it was candidates. There were 52 candidates.
What a math problem that is.
And to go through and put them in order of preference, do you know that much about any of these candidates? And there was actually a case in California where there was an audit done after the election results were certified, everything was set in place, and they found there was an error.
Oh, and the wrong person won?
The wrong person was
Mathematically.
certified the winner of a school board election, and it took months to undo that to get the right person to be put in place and certified.
That's really remarkable and quite concerning, because somebody would say, well, you know what, it's just the school board. Well, now you have certain school boards that absolutely embrace having boys in your girls' locker rooms, having boys in women's sports. So politics at the local level, the grassroots level, all politics is local, and that's why election integrity matters at the very basic local level.
That's exactly right. It's so important, and there's just so much opportunity for error in the tabulation. It undermines confidence, it delays election results, it costs a lot more money, and
why would I want to vote if I thought that there was a significant chance that somebody can't do the math on this algebra problem? It's almost like calculus if you have 52 people.
That's right. And they've seen significant voter drop-off in areas that have had ranked choice voting.
One of the interesting things I wanted just to talk about, Bowling Green is such a great, has a great small town feel. Their downtown here is excellent. We're here at Mr. Spots, and Bowling Green is a great place to visit if you like small towns. Lots of shops and stores to see, and it's all an easy walk. But Mr. Spots has been here for a long time. Tell me a little bit about Mr. Spots and who it's named after.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's been over 39 years now. So my husband came to college here from Philadelphia. And while he was a college student, he missed the food back home and decided to open a restaurant, having never worked in a restaurant.
So he likes Philly cheesesteaks.
He likes Philly cheesesteaks. And back in 1986, they didn't have anything like it here. And chicken wings no one knew. They were like, where are the breasts? Where's the meat on these? And so we introduced the concept of chicken wings to this area. And so we've been open for 39 years now. And my husband, being a college student, named the restaurant after his cat, Spot. And the logo is a cartoon cat that he used to doodle all the time.
You can't miss it. It's right out on Main Street coming down, a big sign. It says Mr. Spots. And it sort of looks like Sylvester the cat, the old Sylvester the cat, but he's got cool sunglasses on. And what's the story behind Mr. Spots? I think a lot of people will find it very interesting how your husband basically saved the cat's life, and the cat lived a long time.
That's exactly right. So I'm in a college town, and there was a fraternity that had a snake. And my husband used to be at the pet store all the time. He had a saltwater fish tank, and he was always getting supplies, so they knew him there. And one day before Thanksgiving break, he was in getting supplies for his fish tank, and the girl behind the counter just said,
Desperate.
"Take this kitten,
She was
please
desperate,
take this
yeah.
kitten." And he's like, I'm not really a cat guy. And she said, "Just find a home for him. We just found out what the fraternity is doing with the kittens."
Oh, we don't even want to know. Probably feeding one of their pets something they shouldn't be.
They had a snake, and the rats cost $1.50, but the kittens were free. And this was the last kitten. And so my husband brought him home in a baseball cap, and it was Thanksgiving break, so they drove to Philadelphia together, and they bonded. So the Spot became his cat for 19 years.
The mascot and the logo and the foundation of the business.
That's exactly right.
That's a great story. State Senator Theresa Gavarone, Republican from Bowling Green, thanks for having us in today. We appreciate your time.
No, thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.